Hello, Carly. How are you?
Hey team, thanks for having me.
Oh, definitely. All right. So we're at 32 or 33 participants. So I think everybody's in, and I want to make sure that Chris and Adam have the most time. So I've been asked to do an introduction for our platinum partner. So give me a moment while I get this set up. I'm going to take a deep breath here, and then I'll read the promo for them.
Transform technology, operations, and service delivery to meet challenges and future-proof the business. As a client-focused integrator, we're free to recommend the most appropriate solutions across cloud, IT transformation, next-generation technology, and security. Insight.
Okay. All right. Thank y'all. And with that, I will turn it over to Chris and Adam to introduce themselves. Thank y'all for being here.
Chris, you want to go first?
Oh, I get to go first. I'm Chris Wallace, former CISO for Buncombe County. I was been a NCLGISA member, I guess, for the last few years. Left Buncombe January-ish to move to the Carolina Cyber Center. Long-term IT background, doing a little bit of everything. So last few years has been mostly focused on information security. Adam?
Cool. Adam Bricker, the director here at the Carolina Cyber Center. Moved here to North Carolina to co-found this here at Montreat College. Spent most of my career, actually started off as an aerospace engineer developing weapons of mass destruction, which was really cool, blowing stuff up in the desert and stuff. That was pretty cool. Did everything from being the IT leader at Southwest Airlines and Yum, the big restaurant company, to a couple of ed tech startups and finance startups and medical oncology startups and stuff. And then really had a passion to help try and build something that was unique in a next generation cybersecurity training and services operation. So we the Carolina Cyber Center were initially funded by a $2 million grant from the state of North Carolina. Thus, we want to share what we're trying to do with that money for you and with you. And I really would love it if you would, as I call it, be obnoxiously, appropriately selfish and tell us if you think that's the right thing we could and should be doing. And I'll talk about that in more detail. We then subsequently were granted $3 million to help co-found what's called the Carolina Cyber Network with Fayetteville Tech Community College, and I'll talk about that. We won a $2 million grant from the Department of Labor to enhance cybersecurity for some inner city programs. The first one we're doing is in Atlanta. We're doing another program in Charlotte with great partners, Road to Hire in Charlotte and City of Refuge in Atlanta. It's been not an easy ride, but a great ride. And this is a really important group for us to give us the feedback if we're on the right track to serve you and serve our state with improved cybersecurity. So I will start a little dog and pony show because we can't proceed without one, right? So hopefully that's sharing. Chris, is that sharing the screen? Oh, good. Okay. All right. So I'm going to jump ahead here. So when we think about cybersecurity, this is the joke we all see. So we can't trust everybody that works here, and we can't trust everybody that doesn't work here. It seems like a snarky joke, although this last year, people talk about the insider threats rising dramatically, and not just the people that took their files home, but actually people that did malicious activity from insider threats. But most of you know the state of cybersecurity, so I'm just going to briefly touch on this. And it's interesting over here, about 33% of all jobs. And I put a highlighted link there to CyberSeek, because the one most people quote about having 500,000 open jobs in the country. They quote that there's about 17,000 jobs open in North Carolina. I'm a snarky, direct guy. I actually don't believe that data. I don't believe it's quite that bad. But it is clear that cybersecurity unemployment is just about, the unemployment rate's just about zero. The cybersecurity threats just in that circle area there, and I haven't updated it with the data that just came out a few weeks ago, so it's a little bit higher than that. It was about $4.8 billion. But if you jump down to the bottom, it averaged almost $1,600 per person in all of the counties that are sitting on this call right now. $1,600 per person, including all of us on this call, was probably the total cost of cybersecurity in the communities we serve, if you averaged it out per person. One of the other one that really struck me was the Verizon report and the AT&T report that said that 60% of the small businesses that were hit were out of business within 6 months, largely as a result of being unable to recover from the reputational damage and financial damage of cybersecurity. But again, a lot of it's mastery, stating the obvious. For those of you who don't know Montreat, we're a Center for Academic Excellence school. Been here, our instructors, our professors average 20 years of experience, blah, blah, blah. But what we wanted to do is to leverage the best of what leverage the best of what Montreat College has with the best of what we could custom build ourselves. And we have a motto to shamelessly steal the best of what others have already mastered. So we'll take it from just anywhere we can, whether it's a Professor Messer video or a Black Hills Information John Strand videos or something that we create, and labs and stuff like that, and put it together in a program that develops cybersecurity professionals of character. So that is our mission. When we took the money from the, over $4 million now from the state of North Carolina, three key things: to develop cybersecurity professionals of character, improve the resilience and the security of our regional resources, and to advance the state of practice of cybersecurity. So to go in reverse order, Chris and I obsess about free or nearly free tools. What are the reasonable and prudent things, meaning a reasonable IT professional could implement this in a day, a few days. Can we help deploy those tools and technically make people aware of those? We're going to have a conference dedicated to that in September of this year. Then at the other end, we talk about cybersecurity professionals of character. A professional is somebody who's so good you get paid to do what you do. That's all of you. But we define character as positive values in action, and we want to develop the whole person. And we'll define the characteristics of a person of character on the next little view here. So we define character as positive values in action. And we're not trying to impose our values on other people, but we want them to those students and the people we get a chance to mentor. We joke, we say we love on them and beat on them. But we want to help them with their curiosity, because we believe in cybersecurity. That's one of the innate core competencies of somebody, core values of somebody successful in cybersecurity. And I love the opportunity to work with Chris, because I don't know anybody who demonstrates that better than he does. But at the same time, we say you have to have passion and discipline, because passion without discipline is boredom, but discipline without passion is boredom, but passion without discipline is chaos. So you've got to marry these two things together. And one of the things that we don't see a lot taught in cybersecurity programs is the power of critical thinking, the reasoning, the dispassionate approach, trying to prove yourself right, trying to prove yourself wrong. Because as most of you know, in cybersecurity, you actually never know if you got it right. You actually don't know if you're done. The bad people could still be lurking, the attackers could still be lurking in your network. So we have intentional programs and attributes of our curriculum to develop these, in people. And the last I'll press on a little bit is agency under duress. We'll close this presentation with some of the tools and templates and technologies and cyber ranges that funding from the state has afforded us to buy. But one of the things that we've seen what's the joke? It's like when the human feces hits the oscillating fan, people crack under that, or they get stressed and the sweat starts to come up on their brow and they forget their Linux commands and they forget the next steps and they forget that they were taught a MITRE ATT&CK framework or something. And so we want to incrementally build that ability to act when things are tough. So when we built out our academy, we didn't just take 4 years, although the average STEM graduate is now 5.2 years and $70,000 in debt. We didn't just take the 5.2 or 4 year program and compress it into 18 to 26 months, but we did really rethink the order in which those are taught, how they're taught, and more importantly, it's not how well we teach, it's how well the student learns. But we also firmly believe that until they get some real world experience, they're not ready to come work with and for you. And we'll talk about how we do that in a little bit. So we've been really blessed with money from the state, the federal. We won a Department of Defense grant and an NSA grant and stuff like the NSA grant, the one that's funding our character development program, ostensibly to attack insider threats. So we get this money, we want to put this program together. We were really blessed to then start building out a set of professional services. And yes, we charge for some of our services, but it's only to recoup, to pay it forward to the next, because that's how the students get hands-on experience. And if something is free, that's often what it's worth to somebody, nothing. But we've launched a series of Academy. We're doing our third versions this year. We got a Academy run. runs. The one that we're running right now, so if anybody of you know somebody that's interested that would want to jump into a Network Plus course and going forward for the rest of the year, it's Tuesday night, Thursday nights, and Saturday for 4 hours on Saturdays, and it's free to residents of North Carolina. So this is somebody who has a little bit of an IT background, but now wants to jump into finishing out their readiness in their career here and then getting into cybersecurity. So again, that program is Tuesday and Thursday nights and Saturdays, and it's free to North Carolina residents. We're doing an academy in Charlotte with Bank of America, Novant, Red Ventures, Lowe's, Duke Energy, Ally Bank, and Atrium Health. And those partner and our partner to run that is called Road to Hire. So we have 50 students in that academy now. It's a full-time academy to develop SOC analysts for those 8 companies. And if the students complete the curriculum, which is a demanding curriculum, they all won't get through it. We're getting better at recruiting the students. We had we accepted about 25% of the applicants to get into this program, and we expect about 80% of them to graduate. We've gotten better at discerning who really does well in these programs and who doesn't. And to be honest, like our first academy, only half of them graduated. We hope that because we're more discerning who gets in, we hope that it's more like 80% now. The program that we're launching in Atlanta is with a great partner there called City of Refuge, a very similar program. Inner City Atlanta program is probably a 9-month to 12-month academy, again, full-time. And then we have a set of training courses, but I'll jump ahead here. But we have been blessed because we were given some money to really think through some vexing problems. And the problem is, how do you get more people interested in cybersecurity? How do you develop them more competently, more completely, and faster, if you can, knowing that time on task is still the ultimate measure. How much time did you actually spend with your hands on the keyboard trying to learn this stuff? But at the same time, we got a chance to research a lot of the pedagogies, andragogies, videos, labs, what's working out there, so we can get the cost down by leveraging free materials as much as we can. And you know, what really develops real world experience. So let me jump ahead here. So when we thought about how corporate training has evolved, you know, a lot of our programs, not just because of COVID, but just the opportunity to reach people all across the state. And we have in-person classes as well as virtual, but most of our classes are virtual. You know, we take the lessons of what's happened in this learning to create an academy, which is taking the best of this design thinking, where, you know, we mix of into a learning management system, but we are trying to get more data driven, and we're trying to do this micro learning, which means like 20-minute exercises that all pace and sequence on each other, real-time live instructor led, but a lot of asynchronous learning as well. And we still got a lot to do, but as you say, here we are here. That's kind of where we're at in our academy now, and improving it every year. And so I love Brene Brown anyway, but you know, we thought about the tolerance for failure, and science is quite clear that you're not actually learning anything unless it's hard. But in cybersecurity, you're going to fail a lot, just like writing software. You're going to fail a lot. Some things are not going to go well, but that's how you learn. And we believe that we need to weave that mental model, that DNA, into our students about the tolerance for failure. But the other thing we're also quite clear on is the tolerance for failure has to decrease. By the time they come work with you and for you, they better not be failing in your networks and your environment. They better know what they're doing. So we've been blessed to have the money to partner with like Forsyth, Tech Community College, Elizabeth City, NCA&T, Stanley, some others. We're creating some programs to increase awareness in the K-12 schools. And again, we would love it if anybody on this call has some contacts and points. We would really appreciate how we can do a better job. Like if you've seen a great cybersecurity K-12 program, and again, I'm rude, crude, and socially unacceptable. I see the Project Lead the Way program that the Department of Public Instruction has chosen for K-12 schools. Most, if not all, of the schools that I've talked to, high schools, probably 15 or 18 of them, not one of them can afford the program. So that's just a non-starter for them. So if we think they're going to take that program and spend $20,000 to educate 4 or 5 teachers, and they're going to spend $30,000 or $50,000 to buy the curriculum, and they just can't afford it. So but fortunately, DPI was very favorable to when we approached them. It's actually just yesterday about can we help you create an open source free materials, and we'll help train the teachers to get that cost down. Project Lead the Way is more than just cybersecurity, but would you let us carve this out? So we want to make some things that are fun and serious and leverage videos, but we also want to get some of the pre-college training and college courseware into high schools, like most of you have seen. But by the time they start coming out of college or coming into college or coming into an academy like ours, we really want to focus on first principles. What are the foundational things they need to know? And then immediately, as fast as we can, start getting them into hands-on programs. And I joke here about, the first CompTIA labs and some others, they're just like click next, do this and then this. And we think that getting into the more complex simulations and then getting a real world cyber business with and for you is what's going to help these students develop the real world experience you would expect. It starts to get not just an endpoint, but a network, not a static threat, but dynamic threats. And they're not just worried about projects, but they're actually solving problems under time domains. And then in the real world, some things aren't as clean and clear as we thought they were going to be. So they need to get that experience as well. Well, this is our thought about how we would do that. Yes, there's the CompTIA and IC squared and EC Council materials, and the net labs and CompTIA labs and InfoSec labs and immersive labs to get them hands-on experience with some of those. We just call those the click next. But with the state grant, and these are tools that your teams can, if you want to take advantage of them and you want training in them or leverage them, please let us know, because the state paid for them. So we bought some seats in Rangeforce, and we also bought a lot of seats in a platform called Cyberbit. And what I wanted to do is ask Chris to now share a little bit about, what's different from the labs a lot of us went through school learning versus these immersive environments. He's muted.
Sorry. So Rangeforce and Cyberbit are a little bit different. We did a lot of demos, a lot of POCs, and had students in the Montreat program who are at a different point in their learning journey than a lot of us would be, to get their perspective. So these two, Rangeforce and Cyberbit, kind of rose to the top. Initially, Rangeforce was at the top, and then we tested Cyberbit, which added a whole nother layer. So both of these give you lab options, and these are a lab environment where you connect to a VM through a browser. You have access to industry standard tooling in there. You can log into Splunk, you can log into various EDRs, you can log into a Palo Alto firewall. You have full functionality of those tools. So if you need to create rules in a Palo, you're creating rules in a Palo. It's just like you would have in a network environment for a business. Rangeforce has I forgot what they call it, but it's kind of like an assistant that's on screen that kind of guides you through a scenario and then quizzes you at the end. Cyberbit's a little bit different. Same kind of functionality on the lab scenario. What they add is what they call live fire exercises. So it's a team-based exercise. You have up to 12 people. We see 5 to 6 as a better fit. They all log in. They all have a analyst workstation. They can all access the same tools. So generally there's depending on the size of the exercise, there's generally going to be an internal firewall, an external firewall, an EDR tool, a network monitoring tool, and then a case management system. So they have access to the tooling. There is mock regular network traffic going on behind the scenes. So they're getting alerts in SIM, just generally false positive stuff, but same type of stuff you would see in a real environment. And then at the same time, there is a mock attack that happens. And the scenarios are code names, so they don't know what's going on. There's everything from somebody got in and has written a job to shut down Apache on a consistent basis, all the way up to full-blown ransomware attack. And so they're having to act as a team and do full defense, just like they would in a real SOC. And the interesting thing, at least to me, is even in a functioning SOC, the chances of them seeing some of these attacks are not that high, at least based on my experience. They might get one every once in a while, but they're not going to see, they're not going to see SQL injection followed by ransomware the next week. That they're just not going to see that. But if they do, they're already going to have experience defending against those types of attacks. And then there's a quiz at the end. They have to put in IOCs just like they would in a real world environment. So it's a full, kind of a full mock scenario without any real chance of if they fail, it doesn't cause an issue. It's very different from doing a mock exercise on your own network, because it's completely self-contained.
It culminates with those live fire exercises.
So yeah, we chose to go with those. We have some of the schools in the cyber network are using Range Force. Some of Oops, somebody muted me.
The live fire exercises go on for hours, and teams are competing, red team, blue team, right?
Yeah, these are typically like 4-hour exercises.
And then the next part here, what Chris has been instrumental in helping to build out this learning journey, but also Chris is leading the development of the tech stack and the solutions for our students to get real world experience providing these services out. And again, Chris, I'd like you to describe kind of where we're at on that thought journey and what kind of systems and solutions we're looking at. And as invite everybody to reaches a beer or something to give us feedback on it. So
the idea here is that we build a services side of the business. The students, and I came across a new term the other day that I like. So we would call them associates at this point. So when they're this far along in the program, they would come into this services business and they would work. They would be an associate SOC analyst, so kind of a level 1 analyst. They would see real traffic. They would be getting it kind of like an internship, but I don't like calling people interns. So they would be serving in the business. They would be seeing real traffic. They would be doing kind of first level triage, just like they would as a first level SOC analyst working for a company. The idea being that when they finish this and they go apply for that first level SOC analyst job that says you must have experience, even though you're applying for entry level, they actually have verifiable experience. So this would just be, the icing on the cake. And some of the things we're looking at, some of the things that I want to do is sorry, I've got a list of stuff. Obviously, traditional security assessments up to and including pen testing, possibly. A lot of these we would do with partners, so the students or the associates would be kind of along for the ride and learning along the way, not necessarily leading. But they would be doing these with industry partners. Detection, not necessarily response. And by detection, the way this would work is we would take logs from a customer, ingest those logs, run them through our systems. The associates would monitor that. They would also do proactive threat hunting on those logs. More proactive, less necessarily reactive, which you're going to, would be a traditional NDR type solution. Some other things that I'm interested in doing that not a lot of MDR, MSSP type businesses around here are doing that I'm aware of would be adversarial emulation. So kind of an automated red teaming scenario where, you know, we can deploy benign malware or a benign piece of ransomware on a client system and see if their defenses in place detect it or prevent it. Another thing that I'm interested in pushing out is active deception. So that's been talked about a lot recently. Is that, you know, we've been trying to keep the threats out for 20 plus years at this point, and they still get in. So a better use of time and focus is less on prevention and more on the faster detection. Active Directory hardening, analysis, configuration, things like that. Proper logging. So there's some statistics out there that the people that do logging and ingest that into SIMs and have alerts, 90% of what they log doesn't have an alert configured for it. So, you know, your traditional security vendors, and I don't want to, I'm not going to name names, but most of the SIM vendors, as an example, charge by log ingestion, so or by data ingestion. So the more logging they can convince you to turn on, and the more data you send them, the more you're going to have to pay. And if you don't have anything configured to alert on that, you're just you're leaking money. A couple of other things, you know, we're looking at is specifically mail security. I did a presentation with Randy on that, I think two years ago, maybe. I think the state's actually going to take some lead on that. But we're looking at some potential offerings for that on the ingestion side of it, not mail security gateways. I'm not a big proponent of those anymore. I think that the API models that plug into your mailboxes and constantly monitor your mailbox are a little bit better on that end. So we're looking at some things like that are potential offerings. Of course, we already do, the Cyber Center does security awareness training through Living Security, which is a newer, like a role-playing type security awareness training. They actually take
videos, does a cyber escape room.
Yeah,
like
yeah. The escape room thing is pretty cool. They kind of take the attendee and put them in the place of what an active defender would do. So, you know, your person that works in HR gets the full experience of what an incident responder would see.
You don't have to have any cyber skills. It's actually a team building exercise that lasts about 40 minutes. So if anybody on this call would like for us to run a cyber escape room for their team, it's about 6 to 8 people. We're glad to do that for you. Great awareness and insight.
So yeah, I mean, less traditional stuff. I think more active, less passive.
Hey, Adam, can I, and Chris, can I ask you about the escape room? That sounds pretty interesting. I mean, is there any cost, or what does it take to get something like that set up for a team? So
you can go to our website, or you can just email us or drop it in the chat session here, and I'll take a copy of it. But we'll do that for this group. We'll do one session for each of you for free. We got the grant for other agencies and other people. We just have a cost recovery program, but for this group, we'll do a escape room for free.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that.
So, you know, I wanted to back up to one chart that I blew by. Chris was doing a great job of describing this, so I wanted to get ahead. But our model, you know, we're not here to compete with for-profit enterprises. So every project that we do, and we've done 3 or 4 now, and we're 3 or 4 more coming up in the coming weeks, is every project we go forward with a partner, just like every academy we run is with a partner. So we have a commercial cybersecurity firm that comes alongside and does an assessment, whether it's CMMC or risk assessment or penetration test or vulnerability or whatever. We reduce the cost because we're leveraging the state grants, and the cost recovery we've had is so we can pay the students to do the work. So it's not the 400 and I think I thought FireEye $475 an hour now. Even some of the local MSSPs in the several $100s an hour range. But our focus is on the underserved. We actually use this term cyber naked. A lot of them are just doing nothing today. They don't have a cybersecurity services firm. They don't have an IT staff trained in cybersecurity or somebody who's got the time to dedicate to it. And so we want to bring in the quality from these partners to assure the quality for you and everybody else we get a chance to serve. Leverage our grant nonprofit status to do it at a very, very low cost. But that's all we're focused on, because our journey is to develop the students and harden the resources of the state. We're not trying to build the next Dell Secure Works or something. I'll jump ahead here. So this is who we're focused on serving. Those that we see the most need. We've done a lot of primary research and interviewed a lot of municipalities, small nonprofits, small businesses. And that's who we're hopeful to serve, because we call them the missing middle and those that are most getting hit. And this last year was the first year that small and medium businesses surpassed large businesses for the cyber threats and number of cyber incidents. It's getting worse. And you can imagine why, right? They don't know who to trust. They don't know who to go to for services. They think they can't afford it. And if they're doing little or next to nothing today, we'd like to come alongside them or their MSP to provide some services to help harden them, and by doing, give the students real world experience, our apprentices. So I touched briefly on this concept called the Carolina Cyber Network. And last week, I literally circumnavigated the entire state from Blue Ridge Community College to Forsyth, to NCA&T, to Elizabeth City, or to Fayetteville, through Charlotte and back home again here in Black Mountain. And what we did is we created this network of schools so that we could all learn and grow together better. And it was kind of interesting. A lot of the schools viewed themselves almost like competitors to another community college or to a state school, four-year institution. And we're like, guys, the taxpayers of North Carolina paid for this. We should all collaborate. And to my great surprise and great pleasure, they agreed. So we have 11 schools in this network now, and they're from across the state. We use kind of this hub and spoke model where Montreat College and Carolina Cyber Center, we're responsible for collaborating with some of the schools. Fayetteville Tech is responsible for collaborating with the schools. But here's our motto, 3 main things. 1, each school should lift the base quality of their cybersecurity training, cybersecurity talent development programs. And that's technical skills, professional skills, and those 6 essential life skills earlier. I didn't call them that, but curiosity, discipline, grit, critical thinking. We're improving the caliber of the curriculum and the teaching to teach the teachers and train the teachers across all of these schools, and then sharing it. So that's the first one, the base level of instruction. And some schools like Blue Ridge are building a new program. Elizabeth City is reestablishing their program. They shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. We will give them our curriculum. We will give them our labs. We don't care. The second thing is we want each of the schools to develop what the NIST framework calls, the National Institute of Cybersecurity Education, their specialty areas. So for example, Catawba Valley and Blue Ridge are very big into agriculture. Catawba, Gaston, and Fayetteville are very big into healthcare. NCA&T has specialty in industrial control systems and IoT. Elizabeth City with aviation. There's another one. Manufacturing tech and some others. So they each have their specialty, and Stanley Community College hosting the net labs, the NDG labs for many of the other schools. I think they're up to like 300 schools. So when we got us in Fayetteville Tech got the $3 million, we sub-granted out $750,000 or something to these schools to help them build their capacity. And then we're developing some capabilities like the SOC that Chris is developing, the technology and the services that he just talked about. Those services are not going to be delivered all through the Carolina Cyber Center. If there's a business up near Elizabeth City, we'll pick their students and we'll go help them deliver that. And if it's near Richmond, we'll help them, or Catawba Valley. It's about lifting all of the students across the network. And I did want to pause. We've gapped a lot here, and I'll pause and field some questions. I saw a couple there in the chat box. the Carolina Cyber Network. We have 11 schools. 1, let's lift the caliber of their education. 2, let's help them develop their specialty areas. And number 3, let's help all together crosswalk the program so the students coming out of K through 12 can get into cybersecurity. And if somebody comes to Montreat for the first couple of years, but then wants to get into industrial controls and Mantac, then transfer to NCAT without losing the crosswalk, the curriculum, so they don't lose time and credits. And if they come out of an academy like ours, will those schools give them college credit for the certifications that either we've developed or that industry is recognized, like through CompTIA, ISC Scores.
Hey, Adam.
Yes, sir.
This is Mark. I'm just kind of curious. When you're talking about early education for cybersecurity, K-12, what sort of things are you doing to explain to very young people the complexities of cybersecurity? How are you engaging them?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we've got any great special sauce here. I will tell you that cyber.org and Florida are the two that I like the most, the Cyber Florida programs they like the most. And what they do is they introduce the students to the sort of the joy that can be found in cybersecurity of solving problems, and then making it incrementally more difficult on them to see if they will, using gamification techniques, to see if they will rise to the occasion to keep growing. We do introduce them to about 11 different career paths within cybersecurity and why they're different. And then we get them into some of the more we get them into some of the more difficult hands-on experience pretty early. But not sure we've all cracked the nut on that. There are programs that earn badges with the Girl Scouts, and there's those that earn badges. There's a Hispanic male program up at NCAT and some others. But first try to make them aware of it, kind of make it fun. Are they interested in solving problems? Are they curious, like they want to learn things just because they're interested, and making it incrementally more difficult. But in states like Louisiana, Florida, Washington, they have students graduating high school with a full hands-on Sec Plus certification.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. We're keen for advice there. We're just getting started. I wish I'd thought to create a poll and drop it in here. I'd be interested, for those of you that are on the call now, the webinar now, how many of you are using a third-party managed service for managed detection and response, endpoint detection, using a third party to do that for you or with you? You just say yes, 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 or no, 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 no in the chat. Appreciate the feedback. And then when you think about this Carolina Cyber Network, we have a request before the State Assembly for another tranche of funding for the next 2 years, and it's looking promising. It's in both the House and the Senate bill. But if you could give me some feedback, and you think what are the weaknesses you currently see in the students coming out of the schools in North Carolina, any of the schools? So I'm not trying to call them good or bad, just in general. What are the weaknesses you see coming out of schools? If you say, hey, Adam, if you're going to go fix just one thing, what would it be? I've told you what we think it is. They don't have these ranges of simulated real world experience using real tools and real simulated threat environments, and they don't have a chance to go work in a real cybersecurity business for 3 or 4 months to understand what people really do. Love it if you, in the chat session or verbally, you share what's the 1 or 2 weaknesses you see as students coming out of school that we could go address with them. Time on task. Thanks, Indra. Yeah, there is no substitute for time on task, is there? All right, well, that question fell on lame there, so need to change what schools focus on. And what do you mean change what they focus on? What might they be focusing on today versus what they should be?
I just think they need to just reevaluate just the core curriculum on what students are taught. I still, it just seems like that, we try to move forward. We'll utilize technology as an example ahead, but in the school system, we're still doing things the way 50 years ago, 100 years ago, and some things. I do believe that you need to focus on the basics, history, math, and English and those core competencies. But I really think that, there needs to be some change and, more, some focus on, technology, financials, health, those things that, again, folks get out of school and they really don't have a clue how to use technology or how to make the best of it, how to do their finances, how to take care of themselves, how important it is to eat and exercise, those things. Whereas I think we spend a lot of time maybe with just some fillers that I wonder if they could just change the fillers with some of those items.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. So that's what life in all its fullness is really about.
One of the things that I've noticed talking to people trying to get into IT, not necessarily cybersecurity, but is the plain and simple fact they don't seem to understand how multifaceted it is. I mean, Adam, you mentioned that there are like 12 different disciplines just within cybersecurity, and most people don't understand, or most people coming out of school don't understand that there's a dozen times that number of disciplines within IT, and so I think there's this lack of understanding of from people in school as to just what IT and cybersecurity actually means and how big it is.
Yeah, I was giving a presentation to a group just last week, and I was like, this view of cybersecurity or cybersecurity person being a maladjusted white kid in a hoodie living in their parents' basement is so far from the truth as to just be laughable. And to think that's what cybersecurity people do. Like, you see all these fancy, sexy pictures of a SOC and stuff like that. The ones that I went into outside of the, Bank of America or something, out of the very few, they don't look like that at all, and sitting there, looking at these sexy dynamic, networked map screens like a dart trace or something. Most of them are looking at lines and lines and logs and stuff and trying to analyze stuff. And you got to be a real detective. But at the other end of the spectrum, there's great career paths doing the assessments and audits and reviews and social engineering training and understand the human factors associated with that. You're right. It's a tremendously diverse field.
So I work at Stanley Community College. I'm the director of network services, but I also teach Palo Alto, VMware, and Network Plus, Security Plus. One of the things that I try to get across to my students is there's always going to be new information and new technology that's being introduced to the system. Not only figuring out how to manage whatever system's in front of you, but how do you when new information is introduced, what do you do with it, right? So how do you think about your approach? I guess train how to think rather than what to think. Train logic, train troubleshooting, train those sorts of things. On my last several hires at the community college, even coming out of programs that are well known, seems to be a lack of skill in networking and a lack of skill in cybersecurity with specifics. And so, as a part of that, as an instructor, as well as, working on the operations side, I'm always trying to figure out how do we get that? And so I didn't know if you guys, how you guys were approaching that.
Yeah, well, first of all, Kelly Cottle is a great guy. I'm sure you know him well. He's a good friend of us, but really kind to us in the program. But it is a couple of things, one of which we really want to stress those 10 first principles of cybersecurity. We want to get them the hands-on experience with some of these tools, but this is where we're starting to see a game change, and they really viscerally understand it when they see and get inside these immersive environments like a Rangeforce or Cyberbit. And we're hopeful those of you at Stanley will help us pilot these tools in your own curriculum and give us feedback. We think that's one of the things that's different. But it's hours and hours and hours in these ranges and then doing the assessments and the feedback. We also think there's a lot of good free tools out there, the Pico CTF and the Try Hack Me and the Hack the Box and Holiday Hack Challenge and some of the other ones that SAMS puts out that we see very rarely used in the community colleges in the state. And maybe you're using them there, but the 5 schools I visited last week, not one of them were using them. And I'm like, they're free, they're really good, they challenge their critical thinking skills.
And see, everything that you just mentioned, I've never heard of, and I teach cybersecurity. So if part of the, you're a victim of what you don't know, if you don't know it, you can't use it. And so those are resources and tools that can be helpful.
This is this is what we're going to dedicate our retreat conference to, and the Carolina Cyber Network Conference. I think it's the 24th, 5th, and 6th of September next year, 24th and 25th, rather, whatever that Thursday, Friday is. We're going to dedicate it to these reasonable and prudent, meaning free or nearly free, things that you can implement quite quickly. We'll give you our entire curriculum, all of our labs, all of our exercise, and we say, steal it, go to town. But we've been blessed with the money to research this stuff, and I'm, super blessed to work with somebody that's crazy. Chris's only character flaw was choosing to work with me, but he's just so curious, and so of our students that we've been able to attract from across the state. We've got the time and money to evaluate these things, meaning these tools and templates and videos, whether it's Professor Messer or Chris Saunders or Black Hills Information or FR Secure, again, try hacking these other things. We want to curate those into a set of curriculum and what we call these micro learning exercises, 15, 20, 30-minute exercises, and how long it would take and how you would evaluate them, and then give that portfolio to you so you can pick and choose how and where you'd weave it into your curriculum. But I don't know how you'd know any other way unless you spent hours and hours, with a cigar and a glass of scotch like we do, trying to find this stuff. I do think alcohol has to be involved, but that's another thing. Anyway, thanks for the feedback. This helps us a lot. Let me press on a little bit. This is just a quick summary of some of the academies that we have started up. Again, the one we're running now is free. Anybody that wants to email me or go to our website, it automatically generates a quick introduction meeting with me. But later this summer, we're going to have 6 months and 12-month year-long programs that are generally about half the cost or a third the cost of competing programs. And you'll see the price in there for sort of everybody else, and then because it was underwritten by the state of North Carolina, price for North Carolina residents. And there's other funding opportunities as well. And can any ideas you guys have? Great programs you've seen out there, great lessons. We would love to learn from you. And we also hope that you'll give us the feedback when we come calling to say, hey, here's some low-cost cybersecurity services we hope you can take advantage of, and would you help us develop the next generation? Would you help us give us the opportunity to develop the next generation of students? We take responsibility for the students and the quality, but there's just no substitute for the mentorship that you can give them. And that was it. So I hope we valued your time, but we'd love your feedback on our what we're trying to do. Maybe some of the cyber services that you think you and others need that we weren't smart enough to think about. Go back to that view here.
So I had, so I was watching a webinar, educational webinar, and it was one of the range vendors, and they were talking about how they were having a discussion with a traditional 4-year college program, and the person on the school side was talking about how they're boasting about how they build these great engineers, and that's what they churn out. And the guy from the range platform was saying, but what most the industry needs is mechanics, which I thought, that struck me, and I think that's fairly true. A lot of the traditional CIS type programs, network programs, they're teaching managerial skills at a really high level, and nobody is teaching the fundamentals that most of us need people that can do. I don't know if that fits. I think that fits in with what a lot of you guys were saying too, is that you're seeing people come out of school and they have these super high level knowledge of things, but Chad was saying, he most of the people that he's seeing come out don't understand the basics of how a business runs, or how to baseline a network, or what normal traffic should look like. And I think that's the same thing I've been hearing. A lot of complaints from even outside this group is just general businesses. They hire somebody out of a college program who has a degree, and then they have to spend 6 months to a year actually training them on what they want them to do. So, I mean, we're trying to, I guess, we're trying to circumvent that, maybe disrupt that a little bit. And I think by not being a degree program necessarily, we can shortcut some of that. We're not necessarily tied to the federal requirements. So, you know, if we start seeing that industry needs people that know how to create honeypots and do deception, we can immediately start training people on that. We've had, you know, one of the new things that's come out with CMMC, and we've had, I know Adam's been requested by several companies to see if we could start building a CMMC training program to start churning those people out, because that's what they think they're going to need. So yeah, somebody else was going to talk.
So can y'all hear me?
Yep.
So this is Christopher Ward from the city of Greenville. My question is, I noticed on your website, you don't really have a listing of all your tracks. You just have contact information to get more information. I think that would be helpful for us to figure out, you know, what track will be better for some of us to go through, because I agree with y'all. We had interns come through here and they act like they just don't have common knowledge. You tell them to do something, their first response is, I need to Google it. And then they don't understand that they need to, if they Google an answer or a solution to a possible problem, they don't know how to verify that they're not trying to introduce something negative into the network.
Yeah, Christopher, we are enhancing our website. It's a good point. Right now, we have 3 basic tracks, but because of the tools that we've bought, we've had some corporations come to us and said, you know, like one that happened yesterday, they said, no, I don't remember the tools because I didn't take the call, but it was something like, you know, we have Sonic Wall, Palo Alto, and we use Tenable. You know, if we gave you 3 people that we're going to hire in July, could you train them for a month? Yeah, we could put them in our range, and it has those commercial tools, and they can get experience configuring and deploying and, you know, using those tools in cybersecurity. They went, oh, that'd be awesome. But the 3 basic academies we run: full-time academy that lets you come out the other side as a cyber defense analyst, SOC analyst, vulnerability analyst, that generic trait. Then we have another pathways program, which is, if you're in information technology, a 6-month program that specifically gets you into Security Plus and then gets you into vulnerability, pen testing, some of the traits that Chris just mentioned. And that's a part-time academy for IT people that are pivoting into cybersecurity. And then next year, we're going to launch more dedicated programs as we do a better job of discerning what the market will bear here in our region, the training that we'll offer. Those are the 3 basic academies we're running now.
And what's the cost associated with those academies?
Yeah, great. Let me jump ahead to the slide here. Got my screen full of all your pictures. Oops. So these are the academies that we're launching now. So this first one here is a full-time academy, starts mid-July. North Carolina residents, 5,400. It's 6 months, but just to be clear, it is 6 months of instructional time, because we lose some with Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff like that. So it's not 6 calendar months, it's 6 months of time on task and stuff. Then we have a 12-month part-time program that starts in September, and that's for a similar cyber defense analyst. And then for advanced, for IT professionals pivoting into cybersecurity, another part-time program that starts in August, and that one's 15-month program, because you don't have to stay in all the 15 months. And although it says 84 to 9,600, that's because certain students will come to us and want to drop out and not complete the program, because that's not what they came for, not to do it all. They might not want to do a SOC analyst 2 and learn to be a pen tester and get their CEH or something. There's a couple of variations we give in there, but those are the price ranges, Christopher.
So to add some clarification on this cyber defense analyst definition is directly from the NICE framework. And we are mapping the curriculum around that to the NICE framework. So it will be a largely mapped to their definition of what a cyber defense analyst is. There's a few things in there that I don't necessarily agree with. That we've stripped out some of that stuff, like the full-blown programming experience. Like, I don't. to be a level 1 SOC analyst, I don't feel like you need to know the full ins and outs of how to write a program in C++. Or, you don't need to be a cryptographer to be a SOC analyst. You need to know the different types of cryptography, what they're best used for, the basics of it, but you don't need to be able to write your own algorithm. So the NICE framework stuff is actually, I'm on the NICE coordinating council too, but a lot of their stuff I think is built around government requirements, federal requirements. So and not necessarily real world, I guess, as it were. So we've stripped some of that down, but it is largely mapped to that definition if you wanted to see what the knowledge, skills, and abilities somebody would be expected to come out
So if this document is of interest, I'll send it to everybody. I don't have the opportunity to load a document in the chat session here, but we're glad to email this out, which gives you more specifics of the kind of skills we're developing. And the reason we broke these up into specific classes is some people can save money by skipping a few classes because they already have that and jump in the middle, and then save some money by exiting to help them with the career path of their choice. Our goal isn't that people complete the program. Our goal is that they get a job. And we're blessed not to have to be encumbered by, college curriculum or something. But yeah, glad to send this. Anybody's interested, feel free to send me a chat or I can communicate it, email it out to everybody. Turn the document. Thanks, Indra. I'll do that. I'm not sure how, but if anybody want to drop me in their email, or I don't have everybody's email, so that would be helpful. I'd love your feedback. Anything else you think that we should be doing with the money we were blessed with from the state and DoD and ESTA that you should go, hey, I can't believe you guys aren't. Again, we want to help the entire state build better cybersecurity, talent development programs. All right, I must be sitting between you and dinner. But thank you very much for the time. This was a great opportunity for us to get your feedback. I really appreciate your feedback. I'll hold on for the chat here for a little bit, then I'll take a copy of it if it'll let me, and then I'll get the emails off to anybody. Anything that I've got, the presentation, this document, anything else we've got, it's for you.
So
yeah.
Sorry for interrupting. So do y'all think that your training is going to be highly customizable in the future? For example, let's say you got 4 people coming from an organization that want training, but they're at all different levels. Could you customize a package for each one based on their level of experience?
The answer is most likely, but we have to get into the conversation. So I'll give you an example. We do have flexible seats. We were able to negotiate seats with our ranges and some of the other virtual training platforms we have, where we can dynamically reallocate those as often as we want. Some we can only do 3 or 4 times a year, and some we could dynamically reallocate the licenses to these seats every day if we wanted to. If what the student is looking for is in there, and we already have some of the curriculum for it, the answer is yes. But if somebody comes to us and says, could you help us set up, I don't know, I showed an automation system for an undersea IoT system. I was like, okay, we're beyond us. But the answer is most likely yes. So we have full suite in Rangeforce, Cyberbit, the other big training platform that we bought seats for. Chris, you remember?
Cyberbit or Rangeforce?
We have both of those, but we also have another one. Cybery. And so the answer is most likely yes. We could go into those platforms, custom create a program, give the instructional materials, set up a few live instructor-led classes to make sure they stay time on task and get assessed for you. And the answer is most likely yes.
And I have one final question. I know at the beginning of this webinar, you place high emphasis on professional people. I just graduated from Southwestern Cybercrime Technology associate degree. I went back and got another associate degree just to update my skills. And one of the concerns that I had is in one of those classes, the instructor asked, what is your reason for getting in the field? And one person blatantly said it was to commit crime. So I want to know how, yeah. So I want to know, how do y'all, I guess, determine a person's character before letting them into the program?
Well, first of all, Christopher, why did you say you wanted to get in for crime? No, just kidding. Because you said one person. So here's the approach we take. And I'm sorry for going long, so if people need to drop, I understand. We lead them through a character development program. And it's actually why we don't want our programs to be less than roughly 9 months. This isn't a class you go to and all of a sudden you have character. In fact, for those of you who know Jim Collins, I was able to interview him before I took this job, and in a couple of podcasts, he's repeated it a couple of times. And I have to admit that I was not smart enough to understand what he was saying to me, but I think I understand now. But a couple of years ago, he said, Adam, character cannot be taught. It can, however, be learned. And I didn't quite really understand that. And I'm like, okay. So if you can help somebody understand the why, we give them the structure and a mentoring relationship, character can be developed, but it's not something you go to a class or read a book. I'm being transparent what our philosophy is. So what we do is we lead them through every single week in almost every class, something associated with building their character. Now, we come from a Christian college, but we're not trying to impose our Christian values and beliefs on somebody. We're trying to say, do you know what yours are? And then we help flesh out what their values are. We give them the critical thinking skills to navigate those conflicts. Like if you have, like Edward Snowden, right? He was conflicted between rule of law and loyalty. And then his own moral relativism, where he was trying to make decisions based on what he thought was right. And I don't think anybody won in that battle. So we teach them the critical thinking skills to navigate ethical dilemmas, to become a person of character. And we help them define what their values are, the priorities of their values. And when they're in conflict, go back to the critical thinking and the steps to do so. So some of the programs we lead them through, like the Foundations of Moral Obligation, that was the Stockdale course taught at the War College. We also go through the 12 steps of character that Fosdick taught, and a lot of these have Judeo-Christian values embedded in them, but again, it's not an evangelical program. It's about timeless truths that we want the students to learn and learn how to apply. And we think it takes it over and over again. What it culminates with is this, a character manifesto. And the reason we won the grant from the NSA was they said, if you've been through a small group exercise week after week after week, your character comes out. You can't hide it anymore. And it's interesting enough, that's the same true in like an inner city gang. After you've been in one for a few months, they know if you're one of them and can be trusted or not. Now, you can imagine the kind of character and values, the values, I'll just say, that the NSA is looking for is different than a bank might be looking for, different than what a retailer might be looking for. They're not bad or good, they're just different. But clearly we can define where you've crossed the line and things that are unethical and illegal and immoral. And well, I'm sure you can't see it, but one of the books we teach from is, it's called the Cybersecurity Ethics book. And then there's another program that we stole from Santa Clara University. And we're going to see if it helps. We don't know that the outcome of developing character is something we're going to see by the time they finish our program. We hope, but we have a longitudinal evaluation that we hope over the coming years we will see it. Love any ideas. It's great programs you guys have seen, but we think it's time on task of us loving and beating on them to help them become all they can become, and us becoming all we can become.
So I'm curious if that instructor asked that question at the beginning of your program or at the end.
So, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So he asked it in the beginning.
Okay.
And this was part of the people that have been in the program for a while. Typically, you didn't take this class until your last semester, but he asked it in this one particular class. And everybody, gave, textbook answers and stuff like that. And everybody, personal stuff like that. And that one person stood out to me because I was going like, wait a minute, how in the world did he get through this program blatantly saying that? And I don't think he dropped the class. Because I know if I was an instructor, that'd be a red flag for me. I would have to do something.
Yeah, you'd be gone. You just wouldn't have. And I have to admit, I had a couple of students in our very first academy that I did have to boot out for character issues. Nothing's more funny to me than when I was teaching an ethics class in Morocco. I was invited by the royal family of Morocco to go teach a character and ethics class. And I'm not exaggerating. On the very first day of class, in an ethics class, I caught 6 or 7 students cheating on a test. What? You know, I kicked him out of the class. It was like, this is not up for debate. Anyway. It is kind of sad indictment. One of the things we do in our program is try and help the students understand why this matters. And one of the embarrassing statistics we point to is actually the degradation in character, even in our own West Point and in peer-reviewed academic journals of the scientific community. The number of the incidents and cases of fraud in both cases are rising, rising steadily over the last 20 years. Sad, but we hope we can stem the tide. It's a good question, Christopher, and I'm not sure that we believe we've got all the answers, but it's something we intensely weave into the program. And you'll see it when I send you this, for those of you who have asked, when I send you this document, you'll see some of the character development programs that we weave into this. And if anybody's interested, I still think the 12 tests of character, and I have an electronic copy of the book. It's free because since it's, it's off copyright now. For anybody who wants it, I still think it's the best character readings that I've come across. And interestingly enough, Henry Fosdick wrote this as a series of articles for Ladies' Home Journal magazine in 1921 to help women develop character because, women's rights weren't largely respected at the time. So it's kind of a really interesting read, especially when you think post-World War I and the context within which he wrote it. Anyway, hope this was of help. I really appreciate everybody's time and counsel. I'll take down the notes here in the chat and I'll send anything that you guys want. And sorry, let me put my email out. Well, you have it. You'll have it from this meeting and from the deck, but I will put my email into the chat session as well. So anybody wants to send it afterwards. Type here. Make sure there's no typos. All right, looks good. All right, well, everybody have a great evening. Thanks for letting us take this key part of your day. Cheers.